Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the Ice Bath podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have my old friend, Peter Taylor, also known as the Fraud Guy. I think you've got that copyrighted now.
Yes.
Um, and we're here today to talk about fraud prevention or the prevention of fraud. Peter is an expert in his field, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, and we shall go for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm sure you are going to learn an awful lot about what fraud is and what's going on in that particular world. Peter, over to you, my friend.
Right. Thank you. I'm glad to be joining the podcast without having to actually have an ice bath and get wet.
It's always a
Uh,
plus.
not this time of year, anyway.
Yeah,
Um, so I am an accredited counter fraud specialist. My brief history is that I was a CID officer, set up my own business investigating insurance fraud, then worked for major claims companies.
yeah,
Um, um, Based globally and across the UK. About 12 years ago, I set up my own consultancy, and I have also, as I say, become an accredited counter fraud specialist. My clients include banks, insurers, um, online retailers, but all sorts of businesses, and
yeah,
particularly as well, do quite a bit of work with technology companies, helping them to design, develop products that actually work
yeah,
in terms of combating fraud. And because I've been operational for most of my time,
yeah,
as well as strategic, I've got a good understanding um, of making sure that things actually work in
yeah,
the real world
yeah,
as opposed to theoretically. So that's sort of how I've applied my trade. I work in collaboration with other consultancies, such as yourself,
yeah,
and I love fighting fraud,
yeah. Okay.
getting the message out there. But more than anything, I love actually producing stuff that actually makes a difference and
Different.
changes
Yeah,
people's behaviour.
yeah,
So uh, I, when I first started dealing with fraud, it was under the Theft Act. There was no actual
I remember that.
offensive fraud
Yeah,
anywhere. It came
yeah.
up for England and Wales. It came under um, the Theft Acts of
Yeah.
1968 and 1978.
78. Yeah, yeah,
And one of the reasons that um, a lot of fraud trials failed was on technicalities,
mm,
and that was because sometimes you're putting a square peg into a round hole.
yeah,
And the final outcome from that, which was great, is every so often you get a piece of legislation that really changes things,
yeah,
and clarifies things. And I was part of the people that pushed and pressurised for the Fraud Act of 2006,
yeah,
and that really clarified what fraud is
yeah,
nowadays.
yeah,
And the ways that you can, the ways that people commit fraud, and it made things a lot simpler and easier.
yeah,
But the most recent piece of legislation that I'd put on a par with the Fraud Act, I think the Fraud Act itself is probably due a revision now,
mm,
because we've gone from fraud being 1% of all crime in the UK to being over 40%. And I've seen figures from the City of London Police estimating it at 53% of all
it's
crime.
massive, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, so it is huge, and it's something that's touching us all because of the beauty of the internet.
yeah,
It's something that's touching us all as individuals and businesses, every day.
yeah,
Every day
yeah,
there's always at least one email coming through
definitely.
somewhere
Yeah,
where somebody's trying to get you to download malware, or to con you. In fact, I had an email trail last night, which I found quite amusing. So I played around with the fraudster for a bit,
yeah,
where somebody impersonated a really good client of mine. Said, and it was the old, "Are you busy?" So I knew what it was straight away. So, but the
yeah,
name had been spoofed, so I just came back and said, "Never too busy for you,"
yeah,
which is the kind of thing I would say to
yeah,
him.
yeah, yeah,
Then I got the old, "I need you to, I can't, I'm really busy at the moment. I need you to go and buy some gift cards."
yeah, yeah,
So I played along and said, "Yeah, absolutely no problem. how much do you want, and how do you want me to get it to you? So I got the
Yeah.
instructions, and then I left it to see what would happen next. And they
Yeah.
came back to me and said, "When will you have the cards for me, Peter?" And I said, "It's going to take till the 29th of February."
Yeah.
Which there isn't a 29th of February this year. And that's it. Then it kind of went dead, and I did all the right things of reporting it,
Yeah.
to the National Cyber Security Centre. So,
Yeah. No,
but
there's some.
anyway, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Colin.
No, I was going to say some people would say, it's dangerous to do that, and I think if you know what you're doing, then it's a good thing to do because it helps people like you and me understand how these people operate, and we can pass
Yeah,
that information on. Like I said, this is the sort of behaviour you can expect to see. So,
yeah.
and I've got to say,
No, you're making a really good point. I
yeah,
advise people the best thing you can do is completely ignore it,
yeah,
delete
yeah,
it, and report it, because you can end up riling some people up,
yeah,
or but and even there are these what they call mugs lists,
yeah,
with
exactly,
email addresses and information.
yeah,
If you never respond,
yeah,
you're a low value.
yeah, to them, yeah, absolutely,
But as soon as you respond,
yeah,
so last night my value on that list actually
gone up,
increased.
yeah,
They don't get around to working out, well, you're less likely to get away with this one.
yeah,
So yeah, I do advise people not to respond. But the
yeah,
other one, as I say, is it's an email address that I um use deliberately.
yeah,
That will draw in
yeah,
emails from fraudsters
yeah, exactly,
and such like. So
yeah, and
and as well as that, I know what protections they've got.
yeah,
So
yeah.
um,
No, yeah, I think you've got to have some understanding and understand the
yeah,
business and have the protection in place. Otherwise, things that can go seriously wrong. But it's not confined to email anymore, is it? I mean, it's like WhatsApp, Telegram, all these, and LinkedIn, for
your
example.
mailbox
Social
now,
media.
yeah.
Yeah,
Your
it's
mailbox now,
everywhere.
your actual physical mailbox.
Mm,
Seeing more and more. We're kind of going off topic a little bit, but it
yeah,
is important. Is we saw a lot of physical crime transfer into digital crime,
yeah,
particularly over the last 10 years, but more so over the last 5 years. So if you look now, we don't have bank robberies. We
no,
have
no,
hardly any bank robberies, where a gang goes into a bank
no,
with shotguns and a getaway car. Well, that's been replaced because digitally, the criminals attack the banks digitally,
yeah,
and attack their customers digitally as well. But what I have noticed over the last 2 or 3 years is an increase in um, physical crime linked in with
mm,
digital crime. So, for
yeah,
example, I've seen people who have, had contact from people pretending to be the bank or pretending to be the National Crime Agency.
yeah,
They've moved funds, but then that has become physical. The next step has become physical. So they get people actually coming to the door,
yeah,
saying that they are the National Crime Agency, that they are the police, they need
yeah,
their help, they need their assistance. And I think that is a trend that will continue. And I
yeah,
think that's come from a term I use, fraud fusion,
yeah,
where I suppose through my career, started off with what you would now call traditional fraud.
yeah,
So that was like, the individuals that would dupe the bank, the businesses that would dupe each other, the people that would dupe insurance companies. Then I saw the organised crime gangs get involved in it as well
yeah,
because they had lots of people, lots of names,
yeah,
um, lots of false documents. And then that evolved. The dominant factor was the cyber criminals.
yeah,
But now what we've got is we've got all three of them working together
together, yeah,
and benefiting
collaboration,
each other so
yeah,
that there's more traditional fraud,
yeah,
there's more organized crime,
yeah,
as well as there being more cybercrime. So
yeah,
we
definitely,
focus a lot on cybercrime, but
yeah,
fraud doesn't just come through cyber.
no, no,
So returning back to the topic,
yeah,
is the Economic Crime and Corporate Transparency Act
yeah,
of 2023.
that's it,
Uh, Probably interesting to look a little bit back about the history of that, which the aim of the legislation is to ensure that corporations are effectively held to account or committing serious crimes. In
Yeah.
this case, being involved in fraud, where these organisations actually can benefit from the fraud.
Yeah.
That came from a law commission paper back in 2022. At one point, it was basically there is a selection criteria.
Yeah.
So what the government said at the time was they didn't want to um, create a load of red tape for every business in the UK, but they did want the large corporations and the larger companies to be held accountable
Yeah.
if fraud was committed by their employees that actually benefited them
Yeah.
or benefited their clients. So it started off with a criteria which is the current criteria, and that is if you've got more than 250 employees,
Yeah.
if you've got more than £36 million turnover, if you've got more than £18 million in total assets.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all three.
No.
If you've got two out of the three, then you come under the jurisdiction
Yeah.
of the Economic Corporate uh, Crime um, Transparency Act,
Yeah.
and you're obligated, uh, you know, by the requirements, by sorry, the consequences of failing to prevent fraud.
Yeah.
But there was a point where, just before the act was passed, that criteria was dropped,
Right.
and it was going to apply to everybody again. And then obviously people fought
Mm.
back,
Yeah.
particularly the business community. So the criteria remains.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, so this basically, in simple terms, which we'll probably cover in more depth, is if an employee, client, or an agent of any of these companies commits fraud,
Yeah.
then it's the same as it's always been.
Yeah.
That person is liable for the fraud.
Yeah.
They can be investigated. They can be prosecuted. They can pay whatever consequences. And then there's things like, regulatory investigations,
Yeah.
the SRA, the Financial Conduct Authority. But if the organisation benefits from that fraud,
Yeah.
then the organisation rather than individuals in the organisation can also be subject to penalties. So you just have to pardon me while I just actually check my
I'm,
own
I'm,
notes on this.
I'm thinking
But
here that just
yeah,
for the purposes of the listeners,
yeah,
does it define what a benefit is? Is it financial or is it some other thing that they can
yeah. It, most fraud is generally
financial? Yeah.
financial
Yeah.
benefit,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to be money. So it could be like
Right.
winning a
Yeah.
contract. It could be abuse of position. So you get your buddies involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So so that's basically what it is.
Mm.
Now, for me, I've been doing fraud reviews and fraud risk assessments. I did the first one in 2004,
Yeah.
and I've done one nearly every year since, at
Yeah.
least one, sometimes three or four,
Yeah.
for different organisations. And how I'll sum this up is, in my own experience, when scoping out what the review will cover from a project perspective, sometimes you hear that the client will say, so you go through the kind of threats that they face, what
Yeah.
mitigation they've got in place, and then you identify the risk,
Yeah.
and then you score the consequences of that risk.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how you do, in very, very simple
Yeah.
terms,
Yeah.
a fraud risk review, and then whether or not a corrective action plan is needed.
Yeah.
If it's low risk or zero risk, then there isn't a corrective action plan other than check again. So you go through the various types of fraud that may be occurring. So that might be people fiddling their expenses.
Yeah.
Yeah. It might be um, taking favors in return for people, people winning business from your firm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, it may be more basic than that, like
Yeah.
taking money out of clients' accounts or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
But what I found was when I was going through the threats with them, that they would say, "We haven't got an appetite for that, so we don't want you to look at that." And you try and explain it to the client. Now, sometimes there's a good reason for fraud review not to include
Yeah.
a particular area of the business, and to me, the only good reason for that is because there's already stuff being done,
Yeah.
or that they're up to their eyes in sorting out a ransomware problem.
Yeah.
So come back and do them later.
Yeah.
But the one that always has worried me is we don't have an appetite for that. So examples would be, and I'm not going to name names or
No, no, no,
companies,
of course.
and I'm not just talking about my clients.
Yeah.
I'm talking generally across the board.
Yeah.
So an example may be, for example, there was somebody has a business that is valued based on the number of subscribers they've got.
Yeah.
But some of the the salesmen get a commission,
Yeah.
so they put names in the frame so they can get their commission,
Yeah.
but they're not actually real people. You
Yeah.
know, so they may be people that they know, so they may put relatives down.
Yeah.
But I have actually seen client lists with Mickey Mouse
Yeah. Donald Duck.
and Donald Duck
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
on there as names.
Yeah.
Um, and but if that So the salesman is committing fraud
Yeah.
to get his commission or her commission
Yeah.
or their commission. But the company is benefiting because the way the company is valued isn't, the
No, of course.
the
Yeah.
bootstrap profit and loss
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
based on, the number of
Turnover.
subscribers they've got. We
Yeah.
have a different way of looking at accounts and finances
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So, I do remember a particular one like very similar to that, where they said you just don't have an appetite for that. And you also get it sometimes with expenses claims,
Yeah. Yeah.
where they'll know that somebody who's really good at the job fiddles their expenses.
Takes an additional benefit. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that could actually become failure to prevent fraud under this
Mm.
act, because if what you should be doing is paying them to do the job.
Yeah.
And what you're doing instead is letting them claim false expenses
Yeah.
or not checking.
And not got the controls. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not bypass controls
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it benefits the company. But you're not paying employers national insurance on that money, are you? And
Yeah.
they're not paying tax on it. So, that could come under this type of legislation.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
the whole fraud thing is quite an interesting. I remember years ago going on a fraud course, and there was a question posed by one of the instructors, and it didn't necessarily demand an answer, but it was put to everyone in the class about, you know, if you get a tradesman coming around to your house to do some labouring, do you pay him in cash or do you always
yeah,
want invoice? And there was sort of stunned silence, and nobody really answered the question at all. So
yeah,
I think do people really understand what fraud is? I probably not, because we all have a different tolerance to what we think is fraud and what isn't.
yeah,
So it's an interesting sort of. We could talk for hours about it, couldn't we? But I suppose the the question which is going to be of relevance to listeners is: do businesses really understand what they're supposed to be doing? And calling people like yourself in, and or are they taking this new legislation seriously?
yeah. I'm seeing. I've I've actually just finished a fraud risk review, which was a follow-up fraud risk review.
Right.
And the work done by the company was absolutely outstanding.
Is it?
Yeah, they had, to be fair to them, they had everything in place.
Yeah.
Um, they just needed to communicate it wider and get it consistent because they were, they were a global, um, you know, the global organisation. But I could see as part of the risk reviews to interview key personnel,
Yeah.
and I could see such a difference in their uh, passion
Mm.
for stopping fraud.
Yeah.
There was no reluctance from anybody, and everybody seemed a lot happier about it and less reserved.
Mm.
Um, but I think, which made me realise that a lot of the time where people um, are doing a fraud review or are asked about fraud, it isn't that they think it's a load of mither. They just think
Mm.
it's complex. And if you
Yeah.
think back to our cop days,
Yeah.
I remember, sitting in the classroom in police college, and they did obtain pecuniary advantage by deception,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
and everybody's eyes glazed over except mine.
Yeah. Yeah.
And out of the class, I was the only one that understood it, and I
Yeah.
ended up explaining it in the bar,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
at the police college. Um, it can be very complex, but it can't be that complex because I can deal with it. And
Yeah.
I'm a simple man, and I like to keep
Yeah.
things simple.
Yeah. Likewise.
Uh,
It's,
you know,
but yeah, I remember being taught
Mm.
fraud at the again at police college in the 80s,
Yeah,
and the sergeant came in with a book of raffle tickets, and he said,
yeah,
"Oh, my son is he's going blind, and I'm having a
yeah,
raffle at the weekend. So can you all buy tickets from me?" And everybody did. And then we got into
yeah,
talking about fraud, and he says that those raffle tickets earlier on was a complete scam.
yeah,
It was again preying on, people's behaviour and all that sort of stuff. So it's a fascinating subject, the psychological
yeah.
stuff.
Funny enough, different force completely, Colin, but
Yeah.
my instructor did the same thing.
Did he?
We all paid
Well,
20
it was
quid.
in Bruges. It
Yeah,
was Bruges. So, and I
yeah,
think the guy was GMP actually. So,
yeah.
yeah. But no,
Yeah.
interesting. So, we are sort of,
Could I just say that I
yeah,
obviously have talked about the positive,
yeah,
but prior to that, I mentioned as well the negative,
yeah,
where people just the word just, yeah,
yeah. Oh, yeah,
yeah. Um, I've seen so many times since this legislation was coming through.
yeah,
I've seen people. It's good to simplify things so people can understand them, and I have seen
yeah,
people overcomplicate it.
yeah,
But I've also seen people um, oversimplify it.
yeah,
And if you read the guidance, then you know you can. People seem to have added the word just.
yeah.
So what they'll say is you just need to
Need
have
to,
um, you know fraud prevention
yeah,
procedures in place. You just need to have done a fraud review. Um, the actual guidance, first of all, it specifies it does say that, but without the word just.
just, yeah, yeah.
You
It
will be
plays it down.
expected, to have, decent fraud procedures in place. And that's always been the way since, for the last 25 years
Yeah,
with regulators. So it follows that path. But there's no word just in it. And it actually specifies in the guidance
yeah,
that each case will be judged on its own merits.
yeah.
So um, there's nothing that's going to make you immune to prosecution.
Hmm. No,
And what it does mean is obviously the person that commits the offence of fraud can be criminally prosecuted. But as regards the organisation, they can also be prosecuted to the same, to um, similar burdens of criminal
hmm.
proof or to the burdens of criminal proof. But they can be subject to an unlimited fine,
Hmm. Yeah,
literally
yeah,
unlimited. So it can be multi-million pounds, but they can also be stuff, sanctions,
yeah.
um, not being allowed to tender for government contracts,
Uh,
you know, th- um, various agreements can be put in place.
yeah,
So there are the consequences for corporate body
yeah,
are now very, very clear. Whereas previously, what happened is you'd find the person that had committed the fraud might get prosecuted,
yeah,
might actually be cleared, but they got away with it.
Yeah.
Kind of examples that I've mentioned before was the subscriber database that wasn't, that had never really been verified
Mm.
and was used in a business sale,
Yeah.
and that inflated the price. So that would come, if that
Yeah.
was a company based in the UK or with the UK nexus,
Yeah.
then they could be dealt with under the failure to prevent fraud. And then the other one is false accounting,
Oh, yeah.
where the accounts team, you're not going to meet your targets, you're not going to meet your promises to your shareholders,
Yeah.
you're going to miss out on your bonuses. So something strange happens with those accounts
Yeah.
that didn't show
So,
good
yeah.
profit, and now they do. And nobody's saying the managing director knows about this.
Yeah.
It might be two or three individuals in the accounts team that have conspired together to do this, so they
Yeah.
get their bonuses. But the company will benefit from that, possibly, in terms of its share value,
Yeah. 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 Of course. Yeah.
and as well as, and that can lead to other things as well, can't it? Where if you've got shares in a PLC
Yeah.
and that their next quarter figures are going to be short
Yeah.
because the money's gone into the previous year's figures,
Yeah.
then sell, before that happens,
Yeah.
and then wait a bit and buy them back,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
increase the value of the shares you've got.
And there'll be some very,
So those are the kind of things that we
yeah.
mean by the term I've used for it, which I've seen used elsewhere now, is beneficial fraud. So
Right.
it's fraud where, everybody is pretty supportive really in trying to stop employees,
Yeah.
customers, um, you know, vendors, people we work with, um, trying to stop them committing fraud.
Yeah.
Everybody's sort of committed to that. But as I say, there are times when people say, well, we'll leave that alone because they're not really taking much,
Mm.
well, if you're actually gaining from it as an organization. The one that I found with professional services is a lot of them have billable hours
Yeah. Yeah.
measurements, and they're targeted to do so many billable hours, and they put in false
24 hours in a
numbers.
day.
Yeah, there was one. There's been a few of them now, hasn't there, which have been uncovered by the
Yeah.
the Solicitors Regulatory
Yeah.
Authority. And I think I saw one last week where it was really ridiculous, like 38 hours a day, and it qualified her for the bonus. But when I first talked to um, private organisations about cheating to meet
Yeah.
targets, it was, oh, that doesn't happen, and they wouldn't
No.
gain from it, and there'd be no money coming through and everything else. Well, yeah, but these are the values, and it's like again, somebody takes on a client without doing due diligence, or takes
Yeah.
on an employee, um, and works the system with the recruitment agency
Yeah.
of falsifying their right to work, then that would come under the failure to prevent fraud.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so it's the convenience side of things, isn't it? So,
Definitely.
um, but the big one I would say is if you come under the criteria, then no messing, you
Should
need to
apply.
deal with it. If you
Yeah.
don't come under the criteria, it doesn't mean none of the other offences
No, of
apply
course.
anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've still got fraud by false representation,
Yeah.
failing to disclose information, abuse of position, participating
Yeah.
um, in a fraudulent business, obtaining services dishonestly, um, cheating public revenue. All those offences still apply.
Mm.
But if you as an if you're employing people that are in a position to actually do that, and you've not built a system, um, that actually shows that you do take fraud seriously and it
Yeah.
is led from the top.
Yeah.
You know, how are you preventing fraud? Can you
Yeah.
document it? Can you evidence it? how are you detecting fraud? What processes have you got in place? Manual,
Yeah.
automated process. What training have you got in place? How do you measure fraud? The
Yeah.
fraud that you're finding. Um, are you auditing for fraud? Are you actually looking for fraud, or just wait for it to pop up and then try to deal
Yeah.
with it? And then if you've actually spotted a fraud, how are you escalating it? Who's
Yeah.
going to deal with it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other one is any fraud system produces a lot of data,
Yeah.
information, and intelligence. So how are you using that? So I tend to, when I'm working with people on strategies and policies, I would never impose a strategy on anybody.
Yeah.
And it varies according to how the company's set up and what its priorities are.
Yeah.
But I tend to start in my head with, well, prevention
Yeah.
leads to detection,
Yeah.
leads to containment, investigation, leads to information and
Yeah.
analysis, and that then gets fed back into that cycle of prevention.
Yeah.
So
Like
if we
the
fail to prevent it, we
yeah.
need to detect it.
Yeah.
If we fail to detect, if we detected it, we need to investigate it.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, as well as that, is if we are investigating it, what are we learning from the investigation? So, was it a fraud?
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
not a fraud? Again, one thing that I see again with investigators, and I get myself, is we've got a fraud. Can you go out and prove it?
Mm.
Well, my first job is, well, have you got a fraud?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Before I
Yeah.
go proving it or
Yeah.
finding out who's done it,
Yeah.
I need to know that there is a fraud. And,
Yeah.
and there are things, sometimes the police get a bad reputation for saying, oh, it's not a fraud
Yeah.
when people believe it is. But there are examples, and I
Yeah.
don't want to use too much more time.
Yeah.
There are quite a few times when there's an allegation of fraud that isn't actually fraud.
Yeah.
It's a complaint of some sort, or you've
Yeah.
been let down. And the key with fraud is the key word for me is the word dishonesty.
Yeah.
There has to be some level of dishonesty.
Yeah.
If it's a mistake, an error, a misunderstanding, then that isn't fraud.
Yeah.
It can't be fraud.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, exactly. And the whole dishonesty, that's something that's not honest, and the reasonable man or the woman in the street side of things. But I
yeah,
mean, we're about just over 30 minutes. That's been really interesting. I was going to ask you if somebody is listening to this and they want to know what to do. I mean, I think I've picked up there. The answer is do a fraud risk assessment, and I know you do
yeah,
that. Um, but the second one is how do people contact you if they want help in this particular area?
yeah. Um, you can Google Peter Taylor, the Fraud Guy UK,
Yep.
and that'll give you details of my website, details of my LinkedIn account.
Yeah.
Most people seem to contact me via LinkedIn
Yeah.
because I'm sort of there at least once a day.
Yeah.
So that's easy and connect with me.
Brilliant.
And as I said, certainly if you Google me, you'll probably be able to get my phone number.
Yeah. They've got your face
But
now
the
as well. You
easy,
can find
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. But there are other Peter Taylors available.
There's only one Peter
Um,
Taylor as far as I'm concerned. But
yeah. In fact, I did once get mistaken for Peter Taylor, the football manager. And seriously, I was checking out of a hotel in Maidstone.
right.
And when I went to pay, they said, "Oh, it's already sorted." And what they'd done was because they'd seen they obviously had. I don't look anything like Peter
Yeah.
Taylor, the football manager, but they'd actually had the FA had an account,
Oh, really?
and they just sent my whole bill.
A
Um,
fraud.
yeah, they just sent my bill to the FA,
Yeah.
so
Oh,
because it
brilliant.
because
That'd
it
be
was on
good
the
on
account.
your CV, wouldn't it? But
Yeah, well, I had to contact them and
yeah, yeah,
pay,
brilliant.
send them the money. Yeah,
Yeah, that's been really good, and I'm sure listeners will find it incredibly interesting. Thank you very much for taking the time out, Peter. Appreciate it.
thank you, Colin. It's been a nice cold blast.
Yeah, it has.